Welcome back to educator.com. This lesson is on adding, subtracting decimals. When you add and subtract decimals, there are some rules to follow. The first thing, the most important thing, is to align the decimal points. So whenever you have decimal numbers and you have to add or subtract them, make sure the decimal point is lined up. So for example, if you're going to add 4.1 with 3.2, you have to make sure that the decimal points, this and this, line up. Okay? So we're adding these numbers together. This becomes 3 and this is 7. And then after you add them, you have to make sure you place a decimal point in the same place. So you just align them straight down right here. Okay? And so 4.1 plus 3.2 is going to be 7.3. And check by estimating. So 4.1 is very close to 4. 4 is the whole number that it rounds to. So 4 plus 3, this 3.2 rounds to 3, so it's about 7. Okay, so that's what it means to check by estimating. So let's do a few problems. Add 3.45 plus 7 and 0.835. So again, the first rule, the very important rule, is to line up the decimals. Make sure you align them. So 3.45. Now the next number, we don't see a decimal point here. 7 doesn't have a decimal point. Well, it actually does, we just can't see it. So if we have a whole number that doesn't show a decimal point, then the decimal point is right behind it, so it becomes 7.0. 7 is the same thing as 7.0. So if you have a whole number with no decimal point that does not show a decimal point, just place the decimal point at the end of it, right behind it. So I need to make sure that, okay, the decimal point goes right there. Okay, align them. And then this one, 0.835, again, 0.835. Align the decimal. That's all that matters. Okay, when you add them or subtract them, this is the main thing. You don't line up the numbers, you line up the decimals. Okay, so we're adding these together. So here, whenever I have decimals, I can place zeros at the end of them. As long as it's behind the decimal and it's at the end, we can add as many zeros as we want. So here, it's behind the decimal point and it's at the end, so I can put zeros here, okay, to fill in those blanks. So if I add straight down, this becomes 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. 4 plus 8 is 12. Okay, so then 7 plus 3 plus 1 is 11. So my answer is 11.285, or 11 and 285. Okay? So the next problem, find the difference. So this is, write the first number, okay, 351 and 4/10 minus, now be careful here, if I write it like this, okay, this would be wrong. Okay, this is wrong. So I have to make sure not to line up the numbers, but line up the decimals. So 65 and 25/100. Now I have space right here. Okay, I have to put something there. So it's behind the decimal point and it's after the number, so I can place a 0 there. Okay, I can only place zeros if it's behind the decimal point and it's at the very end. So 0 minus 5, remember I have to borrow, so this becomes 3, this becomes a 10. Get 5, 3 minus 2 is 1. Decimal point comes down. Okay, again I have to borrow here, so this becomes 4, this becomes 11. 11 minus 5 is 6. 4, again I have to borrow, so this becomes a 2. 14. This becomes 8, and then 2. Okay, so this is the answer. Now make sure your decimals are lined up. Okay, and don't forget again to, if you have any empty spaces, you have to place zeros in them. Okay, because it's behind the decimal point and it's after the number, so you can place zeros there. Okay, let's do a few more examples. The next one, we want to add these two numbers. So 123.1, and then 140, we have a whole number that does not show a decimal point. So in that case, we're just going to place it at the very end. It's going to be 140.0, okay? Adding these numbers. So it's 1, bring the decimal point down, 3, 6, and 2. Next example, Sarah has $90.75. Running shoes cost $55.45. How much money will Sarah have left after buying the running shoes? Okay, so if she's going to buy something that costs $55.45, this is how much she has, so we have to see how much she'll have left. So we have to subtract the numbers. So she has $90.75. She spent $55.45. I'm going to subtract them. So this will be 0, 3. Again, I have to borrow, so this is 8 and this is 10. So 10 minus 5 is 5, and this is 3. So after buying the running shoes, Sarah will have $35.30 left. Okay. The next example, we're going to subtract these two numbers. Okay, so just write it out. 7 minus, and be careful here, the decimal place has to line up with this decimal place. So I'm going to write 9 under the 2, 91, and 386 thousandths. Okay, again, I have an empty space right here that I have to fill in with a 0. Okay, don't forget that. And the reason why you have to place that 0 there, if I don't have a 0, let's say I don't have a 0. Okay, when you subtract this, this seems like it would be a 6 right here, right? It seems like you would write a 6 here, but if you place a 0 there, then you know that you have to borrow, and this is actually 10 minus 6. Okay, so if I borrow this, it's going to become 6, 10, 4, borrow again, so 7, okay, 16. So there's 8, 7 minus 3 is 4. Okay, bring down a decimal point. I'm going to make this 10. This becomes 11, and this becomes 5. So 10 minus 1 is 9. 11 minus 9 is 2. And then 5 minus 0 is 5. Okay, so there's my answer. Now, if you want to estimate, you want to check your answer by estimating, this is about 600. Okay, if you just round it to the nearest hundreds, it's 600. And here, this is about 90, or maybe let's say 100. So 600 minus 100 is about 500. So we have 500 something. So it sounds right. Now, if we had, let's say, 50 something as our answer, we know that's wrong because we know that if we estimate, it should be around 500. Okay? The last example, so adding these decimals together, we have 8 and $215.49 and 75 cents. So remember, the rule when we add or subtract decimals is to line up the decimal point. That's very, very important. Now, when we have a whole number that's not showing a decimal point, then we can place a decimal point at the end of it. So just because it's not showing a decimal point does not mean it does not have one. So this is 8 point, and then I can add zeros to it. $8 is the same thing as 8.00, right? And then I'm going to add 215 and 49 cents. Now I'll line up the decimal point. So it's going to go 215.49. And then 75 cents here is going to be 0.75. Okay. I'm going to add these all up together. Okay, so 9 plus 5 is 14. Okay, so 1 plus 4 is 5. 5 plus 7 is 12. Okay. Bring down the decimal point. Come straight down, okay? And then 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 5 is 14. 1 plus 1, 2, and 2. Now we're adding money together, so don't forget your dollar sign. Okay, and this is your answer. Okay, so $8 plus $215.49 plus 75 cents becomes $224.24. Okay, so that's it for this lesson on adding and subtracting decimals. Thank you for watching Educator.com.